This is the Blooming Psyche Podcast. Grab a seat and join us as we navigate life our own way.
Now let's begin blooming our psyche.
How do you do?
So, did you want to do your space thing?
Space thing. We can just talk about space. I mean,
Well,
space is
it's
fucking
gotta
wild.
go into space.
Yeah,
right?
we
It's
can go into space. I like space. So, I like the idea of space and infinity as a concept. The idea that shows that time is merely an illusion in the vastness of space, because what time is here out of what would be the perceivable end of the universe that is continuously being created is at the same time is the start of the universe, at the start of time in that part of the universe,
which is gnarly to think of. Right, when you think of like the true expanse of our speck existence,
right?
On our speck flying
Exactly.
through space. But it is pretty cool knowing that we're on a rock hurling through infinity.
Literally. Yeah. And we have other rocks that fly through our little space time and a couple months of the year, and all of these things.
Oh, they're going all the time.
All the time, right? It's just crazy. It's just crazy. But the thing that really blows me away is that idea that I just brought up, that like we have our time here, but there at the end of the universe that's still being created, that is the start of time in that spot, right?
True.
Right? So if you were to have a super massive telescope that in that part of the universe, and you were able to look at our solar system, it wouldn't even be formed yet.
That's so true. It's almost like time stops.
Right? Yeah.
As long as you can see it in progress.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that wild? and that bodes the question: what happens if you get closer to the, let's just say, the super massive black hole in the center of the universe? Does time move? Is time further ahead? Can they, like, because that point is where let's just say the Big Bang started, right? And time started in that point. Would everything that would be deemed as maybe an extraterrestrial or something that might have survived for millions of years more come from that point that is closer to where the Big Bang started, where that formulated? And now we're expanding out, and as the expansion happens and continues, now there's new, essentially, starting points of time where we have not yet been able to essentially grow as a race to the same point that these creatures that are closer to the center of the universe might have been able to evolve over the course of millions of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, millions indeed, right? Because we're working on a very long time scale here. And that's where, like, if you look at our existence in comparison, it's very, very short.
It's a blip.
Just a blip. But it also begs the question, how long and how many places, and do they have enough time to overlap over their period of time that they have access to space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. If you do want them to interact rather than just exist on different kind of areas in space.
Right.
But it's trippy, right? Because there is the possibility, if you can bypass the speed of light, to travel between spaces that wouldn't really make sense to travel by, but still be existing simultaneously in another part, with the ability to get to somewhere else that may be hospitable.
Yeah.
Right? That may have something that's similar to you.
Right. Like, just a question here. What happens when our star essentially explodes and dwarfs out and becomes a supermassive red giant star, and that potentially engulfs the Earth? Right? Let's say it grows that big where it engulfs the planet, which it's possible.
Just an epic solar flare.
Yeah, an epic solar. It just becomes so large that the Earth is eaten, right, by the sun. The sun just
turns into a crisp.
Boom, gone. It just becomes a part of the sun, right? And so where would that Goldilocks zone go to if we survived that long as a race, which we won't likely? Do we do we take safe haven on the moons of Jupiter? Is that where the new Goldilocks zone starts?
I don't know.
Right?
I mean, definitely not if our solar system is the one that exploded.
Yeah, right. But like our sun, right? If it was to expand to such a degree to the point where it would straight up engulf Mars, or maybe not Mars, but
Like that would
all of these planets up to Earth. Okay,
yeah,
it
it
gets
would
that big.
trigger terraformation.
Mhm.
Is what you're thinking,
Yeah,
right? Heat the core, generate an ozone.
No. Like I'm saying, straight up, the sun expands
Yeah.
up to the size that would engulf the planet, our
Yeah.
planet, right? If
But I
we
was
were-
thinking if we lost the first couple planets, the next ones in the chain might become more Earth-like.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
The Goldilocks zone, that would be moved. That would be shifted over the course of thousands of years to possibly the moons of Jupiter. Because you wouldn't be able to go and take safe haven on Jupiter. That would be impossible. But the moons around Jupiter, maybe that would be where we will be taking, theoretically.
You've got to think about gravity
Safe
too,
haven.
right? Because if you're on a mass that has an incredible amount of gravity because it's much larger than Earth,
Mhm.
and it's pulling at these moons, does that balance it out? Because our moon is much lighter in gravity than our surface of Earth.
Mhm. Yep.
So who knows?
Who
Maybe it's a
knows?
plausibility.
Right? Who knows?
um,
That's
But-
for millions of years in human evolution to find out if it happens.
yeah. So let's start that off then. What is your biggest question of space? Like,
Space.
like what's something that interests you and intrigues you, but you don't know the answer, or maybe you do, but
Well,
you don't know yet.
the idea of infinite always intrigues me, but the idea of possibility, or what is the word? The probability inside of infinite. That is what intrigues the shit out of me.
Well, is that not potential?
Yes, but the idea of probability, right? Anything you can think of is probable inside of infinity,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, because it has no bounds.
Exactly. So the idea of an infinite amount of you and I having this exact conversation, staring at each other from across the exact same table with the exact same configuration of books on the table infinitely.
Yeah,
But also us as a lizard.
just a fractal multiverse.
Also
of ourselves.
us. Yeah, also us, but 10 times bigger on a ginormous planet that looks the same as ours. That is, everything is just 10 times bigger, and we're having the same conversation, or maybe this conversation is completely different. A universe where you and I are the same person, but we never met, right? Like the idea of probability inside of infinite, you can literally think up anything, and it's likely a thing inside of our universe.
Okay, well, let me expand that because it might not just be our universe. So let's say infinity itself is the bubble that can hold all universes because it's beyond time.
Yeah.
And then you have finite things like our universe developing. It's a finite thing. It's not beyond time. Right? But let's say there's multiple of those big bangs, like the one that generated our basically quasar of existence that we're living in our universe from.
Yeah.
But there's other material or scattered stars and other things in a larger, grander space that who knows if they exist in bubbles or if it's like the mix of bubbles and what looks like our space, or like who knows.
Yeah.
Right? But imperceivable to us, we have this complex space, right? That we just don't know the boundaries of.
Yeah.
Right? So that could give way to us living a fractal universe where we're split and spliced into different options and times that go parallel to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it could also give way to a different universe with a different set of rules.
Yeah.
So let's say our universe, let's say those hypotheses might not be possible in our universe, but in, let's say, a different piece of space that has a different rule set of universe, like what allows speed of light to be the speed of light and gravity to have its effect and other things, like let's say they're slightly modified.
The universal laws of physics change
Yeah.
throughout different universes.
Yeah. Yeah, which gives way to someone being way bigger on a bigger planet with bigger bones and bigger fucking everything. Who knows, right?
Or like magic, as what we would perceive to be magic, right? Like, oh, I have the ability to snap and make sparks happen or something, right? Like,
Well, we can't agree nor deny.
exactly.
right? Which
That's
gives
the
leeway
trippy
to
part.
infinity and possibility.
This is why that is the thing that I am intrigued by, is the idea of probability inside of infinity.
Yeah.
Is literally everything is probable inside of the vast infiniteness. We have no idea what exists. You can tell me that something doesn't exist, right? You can use those words, but you don't know. You have no idea.
It might not just be on our time frame.
Have you been there? Right? Exactly. It might not be on our time frame, right? Like, it's just such a fascinating thing. But then you can look at all of the space between those things, right?
Yeah.
What is crazy about the fact that we were born on this planet in the first place with the ability to think and the ability to perceive things and the ability to, but then millions of miles between us is just nothing. And then there's another planet that has nothing on it, potentially. And then
just trippy.
There's nothing more, there's more nothing all over the place, right? It's like we're in the ocean. You swim around in the middle of a deep ocean and you're likely not going to find much.
Yeah.
Right? It's once you get close to the shore that you start to find all the creatures.
Yeah.
But when you swim around in the ocean, which a lot of people have a terribly large fear of the ocean, right?
Understandably.
But you swim around in the middle of the deep open ocean and you're not really going to find much. Really.
No, but you're going to get a lot of fucking shit down your pants because that's fucking terrifying.
It is terrifying. Absolutely. But that's the thing. That's the thing. We're literally floating on a rock inside of an infinite nothing ocean.
True. Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Right? Isn't that wild?
And it's crazy how much water we actually have.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it like a zoomed out scale, how much we have and how much is presumably little based on the size of the whole planet.
Yep.
But for the surface to be covered, it may look like a puddle.
Yeah.
From space's view.
Yeah, it does.
But to us, it's incredibly vast.
Yeah, and it has crazy amounts of life on it. And something that we would call ginormous is a blue whale, but from the International Space Station, you don't see a blue whale swimming
No.
on the surface.
You just see blue.
Even though it's fucking huge, you just see blue. That's to put it into perspective, how tiny we are. Right?
Yeah.
It's wild. and then thinking about it, inside of that nothing, there's a sun that has a gravitational pull that is slowly pulling us like one of those little penny donation things where you put the penny in and it spins around and around and around and around until it goes down into the middle and gets engulfed by the contraption. Right? That's what we're in right now. Slowly, over the course of millions of years, we will be eaten by the sun.
I mean, I think we're relatively tidally locked. However, it's definitely spitting at us constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And solar flares definitely still have the potential to affect us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even in our current position.
Yeah.
Right, which is also fucking terrifying.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it can, it depends on the scale of solar flare.
Well, if it's a massive one and it's an epic EMP, especially technologically as we are now, I imagine if we are a previous civilization, we wouldn't be as adversely affected by it.
Yeah. What was that previous? It was in the 1800s, I think, or something like that, like late 1800s. And there was a supermassive solar flare. Do you remember what it was called? We'll have to look it up. But it's
coronal ejection? I don't know.
Something like I don't know. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. Anyways, this was such a massive event in our history of the biggest solar flare that we have in recorded history. Okay, there was aurora borealis that were created that were red that just streaked through the sky like crazy.
That's so true.
Machines, there was no big cell phones or anything like that at the time, but they had what were these things called? They were essentially where you'd tap the thing and it would send you'd do it in a certain configuration and it would be Morse code kind of deal.
There you go.
That thing. So that was like the early stages of those Morse machines where you'd send messages to people. They would unplug them from the walls, cut their circuits so that they could not receive power, and they were still able to use them and send messages to the other machines.
Yo, okay, so that just answered one of the questions I was thinking of during that bit. And does the solar flare, which it most certainly does, affect the magnetics of the planet and electromagnetics, right? So is the literal charge of the planet increased because it got fucking zapped by light?
Yeah.
Like everything got injected by light. So now imagine if you're a plant. How does that affect a plant?
Does that supercharge the plant?
Who knows?
Or does that super fuck the plant?
I don't know. But maybe the space that we exist in, maybe they did feel something different, right?
Yeah.
Much like the sun having a pull on the tide and making the waves,
Yeah.
right? We're also affected by that because we're water. Well, partially.
Yeah.
Right? But we still feel the difference of that gravity of that body moving at those times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why like a full moon has a different connotation based on the way that people behave during the full moon because there's more light reflected from the moon.
Yeah, totally.
So now that being a fucking massive solar flare, right? I'm just imagining the way that people would just behave differently.
Yeah. It would behave differently.
Like the universe's rules shifted slightly temporarily.
Yeah, like imagine being able to see as if it's daytime when it's nighttime. Right now. Like right now, you look outside and it's dark. But the super solar flare has lit up the sky.
Can you imagine being born during that time?
That'd be wild. Would that fuck you up?
Actually, you probably wouldn't remember it, but you might be affected by it. But what if you're like a short-living animal that has only experienced its existence, like a rat? Like let's say you're a rat and maybe you behave differently than other rats because you were born and experienced a different fucking sensation.
Who knows? Right?
That'd be
Who knows? That would be trippy. But this solar flare lasted something like 7 days.
Whoa.
7 days where people were able to see these crazy aurora borealis, like over Paris or something like that, and stuff like places you would never see an aurora borealis.
Well, just the working electronics unplugged or cut.
That's crazy,
trippy.
right? Isn't it? Like people's hair standing up on end all over the world, like everywhere.
So cool.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And
can you imagine being on mushrooms during that?
Oh my God, I bet you there were some people that took it during
Holy
that.
fuck.
But like there was people that thought it was the end of the world.
Oh yeah,
because like think about that time. It was very much like gospel driven, and like people were believing in their religions and all that. Superstitious, totally, right? So everybody's like, is this the Armageddon? Like, are we gonna fucking die? There's some people that were just partying, letting like as a lot of people would.
Yeah,
like it's just it was a crazy event.
We did it in 2012.
Yep.
And 2000.
Yep. And I'm sure there'll be more down the road. But yeah, just a crazy experience that those people must have had. And to be able to tell your family down the line like that this happened and that you got to see that.
Yeah.
Like what a beautiful time that must have been. Like just to be able to go outside and look up and see that. How like what did it warm up the planet? Was it warm?
Probably did.
Like
must have changed something.
Yeah, it must have. But on the scale that we're at now, the officials believe that it wouldn't wipe out our grid permanently if we had time to prepare.
Yeah.
If we knew it was coming and we prepared, everything would be just fine. But if we didn't, it would effectively evaporate everything that we've worked on up until this point and shoot us back into the Stone Age. Like it might not tear down our houses. It might not destroy everything that we have there, but the lights that are over our head and the microphones that we're talking into fried.
Oh yeah. How deep would it penetrate? Could you have an underground base?
That's a good question.
With the fucking internet.
That's I don't think that's how that would work.
No.
I don't know about that because there's a certain amount of like solar power. I wonder how that would work with solar power during a solar flare. I was thinking,
could you harness its potential in any way?
I'm sure you could, right? Like, but that's what I mean. Solar power, solar panels that could maybe.
It would probably fry those. To be honest,
you think? Yeah,
I think
too
it would
much.
Fry those. Well, it's driven by electronics.
Yeah, fair.
However, being light, maybe if it didn't have access, maybe the radiation would just fry it anyway. But if it didn't have access for the light to penetrate through something based on the material, you might be able to harness it and redirect it somewhere.
Yeah.
That isn't vulnerable. But Sounds like a fucking project.
Yeah, right? So, and we're due, apparently, for a super big solar flare, from
Super
what
big
I've heard.
fucking something.
Super big something. We've been due for everything. On our where we are, we've been due for a giant earthquake. We've been due for...
Oh, dude, we're not in a good spot.
We're not. No, we're not.
But like us particularly.
I know. I am aware of that. Fuck. We're in a good spot, though, for if the planet was to stop spinning.
Why?
Well, think about it. If the planet stops spinning, the gravitational force that is spinning the planet is what is putting the water where it is now.
So we're having a polar shift right now.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
but
in
if
this
the
scenario.
planet was to just slow down, let's say some mad scientist was able to create some giant super thrusters that was able to slow down the planet and over the course of 1,000 years, slow
luck.
down the planet and pull it to a stop. Which as soon
That
as
would
you
be incredible.
as soon as you were to stop those thrusters, that gravitational, it would slowly get back up to speed. But if you were to do that, thinking about it, that water would all shift to the north
Slosh.
and south poles. It would just go north and south poles, and we're right about in the center.
Yeah, but we
So-
would get devoured by the water.
Oh, absolutely. Right. But the people that were to survive and that were to continue on, if anything did,
Would go to this place after.
it would essentially be a giant land mass in the center of the planet, and then the north and south pole would be where our oceans sit.
Okay, but something that would generate this would be a polar shift, which we've had.
Or if the gravitational pull stops, so then we don't have, or if the spin stops, we don't have the gravity to hold the water down, do we?
No. Think about it like not zero gravity, but even just in this room. Like, let's say I were to have a bucket of water and throw it at you, but stop the bucket, the water is going to keep going.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen everywhere.
If
Everything stops,
Not
but everything gets thrown.
that's a snap, though.
Yeah, but that's
My theory was,
Oh,
or
it's
my thing
gradual?
was over the course of 1,000 years,
Oh,
with
yeah,
super thrusters going the other way, that we're to slowly stop
Can
our
you imagine?
24,000 kilometer an hour, or a second, sorry, 24,000 kilometer a second rotation.
That's incredible. That if I'm not even gonna say if, hypothetically that being possible, holy
Yep.
fuck.
Yeah.
But in like a real situation, like a polar shift,
Mhm.
it would be instant.
Mm-hmm.
So everything has the force of the inertia driven from the rotation speed
Mm-hmm.
of the planet
Yes.
in whatever direction it's been.
So even if we were to lose a fraction of that everything, because everything has to go so perfectly, and if one thing fucks up, in all of the universe, in our solar system, and in our little piece of the universe, all of these things have to be in perfect alignment for us to survive.
Well, us in particular are vulnerable. I believe it's in like spring and like autumn or something. However, to
It's like November,
meteors and
September.
asteroids and other shit.
Yeah. So like November and September, I think it is, or something.
Yeah, but we go through the torrid
Yeah.
meteor stream.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's for that rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also one that happens every like 13,000 years.
Yeah.
It might be the same one, but a denser cluster of it.
The
Right.
ones that cause potential
Cataclysmic
civilization ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's possible. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
Here's a quick theoretical question,
Sure.
and I want to see what your answer to this would be. What do you think would happen if we had a Texas-sized meteor fly just, and when I say above, that you can pick any part of the planet that you want to be above, because all of the planet is above the top part of the planet. But let's just say the northern pole of the planet, and it just scraped the top.
Like
Didn't hit us directly, flew past us, but scraped.
there's no way because gravity would keep it there.
Texas, the size of Texas, and it's going this way. And we're spinning, doing our
Sideways.
thing,
Yeah.
and it scraped.
But it wouldn't scrape because the gravity's too strong. If
So
it's in
it-
our atmosphere,
So
it's
even
gonna
if
fucking
it's,
hit us.
So if it's essentially, if it comes, so let's just think about it this way, right? If it's flying at this trajectory, and I'm sorry to the people that can't see this, but I'm using my hands. So we have our planet. we have Texas-sized meteor, right? Which I guess would be more like the size of my finger in comparison to the planet, right? So we have this going this way, right? And then it hits this, our gravitational pull, and it starts coming this way.
Yeah.
And then nicks the top
No.
of the planet. Or would it just fucking
No.
straight up turn in and hit us either way?
It would be like scrapes the surface, hits the ground, and then scrapes and collapses, creating like a massive, like almost like it turns from what looks like a blade upwards to collapsing into like a hand. Like it would spread because it would hit the surface and it would just scrape and collapse downwards.
Interesting. So even if it's something like the size of our smelling salts here.
Well, there might be like flecks that explode off the ground and shrapnel into into space.
This is why I said to preface it was theoretically.
Yeah.
If it was to scrape the top of our planet, what would the cataclysmic damage look like?
Oh, dude, it would be like
and then just fly away, right? And
it would be terrible.
The rest of the planet was to deal with that.
Yeah, no, we'd get wiped out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be like a direct impact,
Oh, yeah.
essentially,
Toast.
even if it flew on by and didn't have a care in the
Oh
world.
yeah, especially if it hit the fucking pole.
Yeah.
No shot.
Fair. Okay.
No shot.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
that would be
That'd be terrible.
terraforming
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. We'd have a new planet.
We would most definitely have a new planet
Yeah.
and maybe a new moon.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. If it came within that, so if it came within that distance of our planet, all right, like really, would it stay within our, like, depending on its speed and which it's flying by, would it just stay in our gravitational pull, or would it would it just kind of become another moon, or would it still continue on if it was to fly that close?
I mean, think
like,
about
let's
our
say it doesn't
satellites.
even hit, because it wouldn't even have to hit us to deal detrimental amount of damage if it was that big, right? It would like, let's just say it literally didn't even touch the planet, but it was this close, like flew over the house. And it would wipe everything out. Like, flew over your house right now, right? It was that close, but it didn't hit the planet.
Holy shit. I mean, it probably wouldn't do fuck all other than like
Wipe out everything.
make a
under
huge
it.
vacuum of air.
Yeah, you just suck everything.
And that would create crazy
Just-
tornadoes and shit. Like, who knows?
Wild. That'd be wild.
Like someone doing like a smoke trick with their hand through the fucking smoke cloud on the table.
Yeah.
And you create like two little tornadoes.
Right?
Right?
Everything would just be gone.
You
And
create like a
under it.
massive vacuum.
Yeah. Huh. But do you think it would stay in our orbit, or do you think it would just fly on by?
Who the fuck knows about that one?
That'd be crazy.
I don't know. Maybe it'd come around the back end and hit the back of the planet.
Yeah, who knows? So there's a theory that I heard of another planet. Have you ever heard of this? That is in our solar system. That is.
Well, yeah, it's just beyond the whatever meteor stream or some shit.
Yeah, and it kind of has a different rotation that we orbit to, or something like that. That comes every, whatever, thousands of years.
Sure.
And
Let's say that.
flies around the planet or the sun in a weird
Weird
way.
ellipse.
Have you ever heard of that though?
I have. I definitely have not looked into it, really.
Yeah, I've only seen like one thing to do with it, and I'm curious to know.
That would be neat.
That would
I don't
be.
know if it would be very hospitable or friendly to life, being
No.
that it's so far from the sun.
Yeah, it flies like out, let's just say, past the distance of Pluto, and then it comes back, and
It's in fucking Doomsville.
You'd have like this small period of time over the course of a couple years.
The sun.
Yeah, you'd have this small period of time over the course of a couple hundred years as it's coming within our orbit that you would be in a Goldilocks zone, and then it might it might be able to have some. Why would it even want to create Earth or life on that planet? Because it's just in this trajectory to go back to death.
That being said, is light necessary to life? Do you think?
No.
I have my thought. Really?
No, because there's animals that live down in complete darkness their entire lives, and on our planet right now.
Okay,
Right.
but what if those things are using resources that
From
were
light,
gained
yes.
from light?
Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair. I imagine that's the case for most of those things. But what about worms? Do worms use
Actually,
light,
that's a good
right?
question.
There's and there's fish that live in the bottom of the sea that have absolutely zero light, and they become translucent because they have nothing.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. But let's say your planet had immense light, which gave it lots of resources and life, that then died. But there's a lot of residue from that life that you could live in now this shadow world.
So
right,
maybe
like the backside of the moon.
right. So
right, like the dark side of the moon.
So like maybe this, let's just say, use this planet that we were talking about a second ago as an example. It comes through, and let's just say for 1,000 years, it's flying in the Goldilocks zone.
Yes,
and it has the ability to
maybe
start
not
the
1,000
process.
years. It might need a bit more than that.
Yes, but let's just say in that Goldilocks zone,
Yeah.
over the course of 1,000 years, a little bacterium forms, right?
Okay.
And that bacterium goes out of the planet. It would likely die, right? But over the course of this, let's just say something happens that causes this planet to be able to have some form of life.
It gets germinated.
It germinates, and then that thing evolves as it is leaving that solar energy system, right?
I guess just like
I
the
wouldn't
sphere of influence.
Yeah, because it's not like if that planet is real, which I have no fucking idea and nobody knows, but if it is, what's to say that it's staying in our solar system? It would have to, right? So how far away would it have to go? Like, what does the sun look like to Pluto? Right?
Does it look like another star? Like, is that small? Like, who knows?
Yeah, is it that far away? So would that little biome, that little thing, that little germination be able to evolve along with this planet that is moving away from the sun at that rate? Right?
Yeah.
Let's just say it comes. Let's just say even if that planet's within that sun's Goldilocks zone for 10,000 years, and it comes in for 10,000 years, it goes around the sun, it comes around the Earth, and then 10,000 years it takes to get away from that sun and then become back into blackness and just nothing, right? And then you just see the sun as another dot. Would that little germ be able to evolve in any way as it's moving away from that light to be able to thrive in darkness? Now that's the question.
Potentially. But I think it does require a certain amount of life to keep living.
Of course.
Or sorry, not life, light to keep living.
Yeah.
Because that is what allows the motion and movement and temperature and entropy and allows things to perpetuate.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Because it's like a quantum resource.
Right.
Right? Like energy itself is light. Therefore, when you're extracting it from your environment, you're converting that light into your energy.
Yes, but is dark also not energy?
I mean, it could be the absence of energy.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. So, but then if I don't know, right? Because if you really think about it, is the absence of energy...
Is that where dark matter exists, where you have matter with the absence of energy?
Yeah, maybe. But like you don't, there's the, so, and maybe I just suck at understanding how light works, right? But
go ahead.
But light doesn't, it has to reflect off of something, right? So light.
What do you mean?
Well, you can't see light in space if you are not around anything. Well,
is that not why you can see the sun?
That's why you can see the sun, yes. However, when you're in the middle of space, okay, and you're floating around, there isn't just light particles floating around you, right? You're just in dark. You're in nothing, and then you see light that is whatever amount of distance away from you, right? So how does that...
Well, light is omnidirectional. However, still a particle.
And how long?
Wave.
How long until it fades away?
That's a good question. Does it fade away?
Does it? Yeah.
If it doesn't get converted, which is why it can reach us in the first place.
And that's why we can see millions of stars in the sky that are light years
making
away.
their way all the way to us.
Yeah.
Right? So that just answered that question for you.
So light never stops. but does it, right? Because what
Depends the
goes
source.
like really, if we were to go outside right now and look up at the stars, even though it's cloudy and raining, we couldn't do that. But if we were to look up at the sky, there is gaps between the stars, but we know that there's stars further between those gaps that we just can't see
Totally.
because they're too small, too far away.
Yeah.
So, because if we could see light and light never faded, we would technically just have a white sky all the time, even in the dark.
Okay, but let's say you're still being influenced by the star you can't see.
Okay. How so?
You're obtaining a fraction of light. It's just a limited resource at that point. Or is it not, does it hit other things on its way to us?
Yeah. I mean, that's very possible.
Right, like much like the cloud that's not letting us see the star in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's where you have the James Webb Space Telescope that can see gas clouds, which we can't see with our naked eye.
Right.
It's an infrared.
Right.
Right, and that's where you can't see a lot of the structures in the sky, par the ones that we can, based on the structure of the universe that we're living in. There are gaps and waves, just like we can see the stars through the clouds. But there's also beyond clouds that we can't see, but we can now see with the James Webb Space Telescope.
So you can essentially, those gaps between stars that you're looking at is being blocked out by something. There has to be something that's blocking it.
It depends the distance, but
Yeah.
at some distance, yes.
Okay. So that's just still so intriguing, right? Because we know for a fact that light, at least human crafted light, fades.
Yeah.
So why does human crafted light fade, but natural sunlight not?
Well, you got to
Or
think the source.
maybe it does,
One's
but-
coming from a piece of metal or something that's like xenon or tungsten or something that's whittling away at its own atomic structure to generate particles.
Right.
Or you can have a incredibly massive, more than comprehensible weight amount of tonnage of nuclear reactor in the sky
Yeah.
that's emitting an incredible flashlight everywhere
Yeah. In all directions.
beyond our comprehension
Yeah. For sure.
via my tiny filament of tungsten or my fucking tiny voltage LED,
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
right?
Because
Incredible nuclear reactor, right? Now think about how much light you could produce with that as the power source,
yeah, no, and that's totally fair.
right?
It's just still such an odd question.
What's the next question? What are you hung up on?
Well, it's not that I'm necessarily hung up on it. It's just more I want to know how light and the suns and stars in the universe actually work in that regard, right? Because like it just doesn't seem plausible to me that something can go on forever.
It's not forever.
And well, is it or is it not?
The star?
Yeah.
No,
Because we can
progress
see
through
it.
stages.
Sure, yeah, but that can progress. Yeah, okay, so that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that amount of, like, let's just say all of these gases were removed,
Sure.
and we were looking 100 billion light years away,
Oh, sure.
and that star, we could still see that star 100 billion light years away.
That would,
How does that
Yeah.
make any logical sense?
because there's no
There's nothing
obscuring it.
obscuring it, nothing.
But it's also that we're in a vacuum, right? But if you look at, even think about it in this way, just our current environment with all the gases in our space trapped by our planet
Yeah.
generates a filter, right? Where, for example, light pollution, if there's like particles in the air, for example, even if it's lightly, you can see light beams in the night, right? So in the same way that you're kind of obscured in here and like in our current perception, well, you just have to translate that ad infinitum, but in a vacuum. We're not in a vacuum right now. So there's things that can get in the way of our comprehension. Right? But if you did have a light that you could flash that had absolutely no thing obscuring it, and you had an infinite distance to go, it would travel there with the timeline because it's a
Interesting.
particle going at a speed.
Right. Yeah, so if we had no atmosphere and we had no dust particles or anything like that to block our flashlight.
You also have to think about the fabric of space,
Right.
right? Because you're also being like the particle would be influenced by the waves generated by the gravity that creates swells in this space that it has to go through or around based on the power of the individual mass's gravity. Right? Especially if there's like some kind of nuclear explosion from a star, it will have some ripple effect.
Interesting. That's super weird. Super weird.
Well, yeah, it's much like you were explaining us being in like the tumble funnel thing, right? Around in our solar system.
Yeah.
Right? But the same concept of something dipping into our funnel, as in my light beam hitting something's gravity well, that's the exact reason why a black hole is a fucking black hole. Because it literally cannot escape the well of the gravity generated by the mass of the center.
Okay, so then with that
So it has the spiral pin is much faster and stronger.
Okay, so then with that said, then so obviously we don't know what a black hole really is, right?
Well, yeah, it could be.
We have an idea.
Well, it could be so potently gravitationally strong that it could punch through this fucking space fabric, generate a white hole connecting it to an alternate universe.
Well, yeah,
but the conversion of that space is something else.
That's jumping ahead here. That's jumping ahead. That's jumping into big brain stuff here. So, but the question, like, a black hole can eat a sun. A black hole can just devour it.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking nothing. Like it
Cheerios.
doesn't even matter how big it is. It's just like, hey, I'm a little tiny black hole and I'm gonna fucking eat you, and that's that.
Well,
and it doesn't. But it doesn't.
Think it's small.
But how does a black hole obtain mass? How is it formed in the first place? The sun dies and then becomes a black hole.
Well,
right? Is that how that works?
It's collective accumulation of mass.
So
let's say there was much more material in a much more chaotic time in space.
Right.
Where things are just exploding ad nauseum because of the volatility of the space.
Right.
Right, with all the gases and reactions and all these things occurring.
Right.
But you now have gravity accumulating, generating based on the amount collected. Right? So now let's say I have a couple explosions. I'm a bit of a sun. I've pulled some more particles to me that I've Roomba'd. But now my mass gets more and more and more, and I snowball to a point where I'm collecting more and more of this mass where it's just coming to me now.
Yeah.
Right? And then I have no choice but to collect more, and I don't want more, but I'm full, but I'm greedy. I have no choice because my mass is so big, things just come at me. But they have no choice and nowhere to go. Therefore, they collapse in on themselves. Right? And that's where you generate a well in space fabric.
Interesting. So then why was it built that way? To collapse in on itself and to become something that absorbs all.
Think about it in this way. This is what happens when people get a pot belly, right? Let's say you don't focus on your abdominal wall and strengthen it enough. It can't hold in your organs, so it balloons out. That's where you can see when someone's toned and has abs, it's very straight, rigid, right? They don't have that pot belly.
Yeah.
Right? Because their organs aren't just fucking ballooning out of their flaccid fucking stomach.
Yeah.
Right? The same thing happens.
So it's essentially just eating too much and has nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
So if you were to throw a fuck ton of hydrogen into the sun,
sure,
that would probably speed the process.
Well, think about it in this way. Let's say the sun exploded, used our solar bodies, like the planets, as more gravity because it got consumed by it, therefore generating a bigger well and then pulling in the asteroid field and that creating a greater explosion and that hitting other things and that, right? But that takes time.
Totally. Interesting. So then if we're looking up into the sky, right, just to kind of go back to that question of infinity of light and how far a sun can project itself.
Yeah.
Right? Could we not just be looking up at the sky? And obviously there's the as you said, there's the gas clouds
Yeah.
that are blocking this light, like our
Mhm.
clouds are right now above us. But are we not looking at a fuck ton of black holes in the sky that could be radiating and eating that light, those light rays, and not letting anything through?
Well, they certainly exist,
Yeah, of course, they're all over the place.
right? But you won't be able to spot them out with your own eye.
No,
Ever.
but is it that possible that that's part of the reason why we can't see the stars that are millions of light years away, that are past the ones that we can see, even the dimmest ones that are so fucking far away that you can barely see it?
There's
Right.
like there's a black hole between us and that.
Yeah, and
I don't think
there's-
the black holes are that large to obscure like a fucking spectrum of the universe.
right, but like I'm thinking I'm still thinking on the grand scale of infinity.
Yeah.
Right, I'm still thinking like if we have an infinite amount of suns, an infinite amount of black holes,
Yeah.
an infinite amount of gas, an infinite amount of everything.
Yeah.
Right,
But they're in ratio,
they're in ratio. Yes.
in infinity, which is wild.
Yes, right. How do you rationalize that?
Because
Like, how
that's
do you-
dictated by the rules of the universe. It's just an infinity
So
in the way that it's not limited by time
so
or quantity.
that's wild. So then, but that's what I'm trying to say is like even though they're not on the supermassive scale, right? Like the one in the center of the universe, right?
Sure.
That would be slowly consuming everything. If they're not on that massive scale, but there's still infinite of them between that could possibly be small, but block out all of this sun. Are we not technically speaking, no matter where you look in the sky, you're looking at a black hole somewhere. In a
I
direction.
guess
Linear.
Yeah.
If you're looking in one direction,
I mean, you definitely can't miss it. You just won't notice it.
you won't notice it, right? But if you're looking in one direction, I'm right now looking at your roof, and in that direction, if it was to follow a straight line infinitely, I will find infinite amount of black holes, and infinite amount of suns, and infinite
Maybe
amount
not.
of planets.
Right? Because based on our current paradigm, which who knows the truth of this, but the Big Bang theory, which is arguable, we're basically a projection in a cone, and we've been projected out of this cone, and we're X amount of time spat out of this basically shotgun, right? And in this cloud that we're in this time being spat out of this shotgun, we can now see around us,
Right.
because there's enough cooling to generate enough order for things to congeal together to us to get to this point, but we're that far out of the shotgun.
Yeah.
But if you were to shoot out to the side, would it be dead space out of this quasar beam, right? Like you've exited this cone that we're kind of entrapped in, or is that cone a projection in a much larger, or is it the small universe in a much larger space? Because that thing that generated that cone has two sides,
Yeah.
right? So
But
there's a mirror universe.
But that's the theory, right?
Correct.
So then, even if there is a mirror universe, technically that theory of mine is correct,
Totally.
right? Because no matter what, you're still looking at infinity,
Yeah.
right? And infinity is infinite, which means that, and in probability, that means that there is an infinite amount of black holes in that direction,
Yeah.
and in that direction, and in that direction, and literally fucking everywhere,
Yeah.
right? So back to my light. Like that light that is able to literally project itself infinitely. All right, theoretically.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, because there could be a point that it fades out and that it just
Totally.
stops. Right. Then, that said, like a black hole, is that eating that light, right? Because the thing that I'm so confused by right now is,
Yeah. Technically, it is because it has a mass.
yeah,
However
and
small a photon's mass is.
right. So if we're staring at a star, and then there's a black hole that forms in the middle of that star, and the fact that we can't see that star through that black hole, is that because that's
A
black
star.
hole?
Wait.
So-
a black hole
Okay, let's say,
generating in the middle of a star.
so let's just no. Let's take a step back. Here's our planet. Here is a star.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's say this is 400 million light years away.
Sure.
Okay, that's a lot of light years. But right here, 200 million light years away, a black hole forms. Okay,
Between the two.
between the two. So there's dead center between us and the star.
Okay.
There's a black hole that forms. The light is now being eaten by the black hole between us.
Yeah.
And that is now the reason why it is gone.
Sure.
And that we can't see it.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
that light is still being projected and eaten. Why? Okay, so then we understand that now. We're on the same page there?
Sure.
Great. So then why is it that there's nothing happening in between that star and the black hole? You don't see light rays. You don't see anything like that being you wouldn't see it being absorbed.
Well, you don't see it in between either.
Right? Because
You see it when it hits something else.
totally.
It
Okay.
still exists. It's just not within our visible range.
So
However,
then-
if you modified the spectrum that you're capturing the light at, you will see it everywhere. But it's just not visible. Or you can't. It doesn't make sense to see it that way, or you won't be able to see anything.
Right. But a black hole is still something. It's just something that's not reflective because it's black.
Well, you
It's-
might be able to identify black holes easier potentially, the way that you modified its capture of light, being as it would be a void of it.
Right.
But that also made me think about dark matter a little bit, which is if you do have something obscuring something, let's say it's not getting hit by light, what's in the middle? It still has mass, therefore it has a gravity. But is it just not the right material to generate a star?
I mean, and that's interesting, right? Because we don't have any.
Because you'd be able to see it if light projects that far
Yeah.
and there's a mass.
Yeah.
So it would hit something.
Exactly. Like it has to. Like it has to be stopped by something. If it goes on forever.
Or is there like gas clouds in a place and then there's like a different area, or is it literally nothing?
Yeah. That's interesting.
But this type of space, let's say it has a mass.
Right. So then
Who knows?
looking at the black hole that is eating everything,
Sure.
and it can't grow a potbelly for whatever reason. Why can't it grow a potbelly?
Well, because
Like the sun, which has the
because
ability
it cannot disagree with gravity. Is one of the rules, hypothetically.
Yes. Okay. But if something has the ability to, and this is obviously like our brains in comparison to all of the
Oh
greatest
yeah, we're on the boundary
scientists.
zone here.
Yes, exactly. Like there's nothing that I'm saying here is known knowledge or anything like that. But why is it that the sun, when it absorbs things, let's just say you shoot a fucking infinite fire hose of water at the sun, and the
Yeah.
sun absorbs all of that water,
Yeah.
right? That infinite amount of thing, and then it will expand and expand and expand and grow that potbelly that you talked about, and then
Yeah.
it will collapse itself inwards.
Yeah.
Now this black hole stays at this size and just eats everything. Why does that not, like, unless it is actually shooting it out of a wormhole into another universe, right? But like that aside,
Well, the
saying
thing is
that let's just pretend wormholes were never even thought of in the first place. And
Yeah.
it's just a black hole.
Yeah.
Why would that make any sense that it wouldn't grow? Why would it make any sense that it would just shrink something down to the size of a pin or
Yeah.
whatever, even smaller, and not gain any mass? Because if something eats, it gains mass. That's like a law,
Yeah.
right? Like in the entire universe that we know, is that it must, if it consumes, it gains mass, right? So why does a black hole? Why does that break physics? Why does that break the laws of everything?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Like, why does it collapse to nothingness,
Yeah,
generating a void that swells, capturing more?
yeah, and then not gain any mass and not get
But
bigger.
it does gain mass. It
Does
does
it?
get bigger.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
So then we can have a tiny little black hole the size of this.
Yeah.
Right? And then that thing over time will get bigger and bigger and bigger and
Yeah.
bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So then
The more
okay.
that it collects.
Okay. So that's good to know because
Think
so
about it like a small stream coming off a waterfall to like Niagara Falls,
Okay. Okay.
but it's just expanding in a
It's
circle.
just expanding. Okay. So then what happens when does that essentially mean that there's a black hole out there that is going to consume other black holes
Yes.
that will get so fucking big
Yeah.
that it will just engulf the entire universe at some point in a trillion years or
Um,
100 trillion years or a million trillion years.
That's what our hypothetical universe is from. Is likely a formation of 2 to 3 supermassive black holes. Likely not a binary black hole based on the size of it. Who knows the fuck? Like, who really knows? However, if you had 3 and they collided, there's a point at which, even if 2 collided, but if you had 3 it's simultaneously, there would be a point at which the mass is so incredibly huge that it has no choice but to rebound, and it gets projected outwards.
Big
and that's
bang.
what the quasar is.
The quasar.
Right? It's like basically like an implosion that collapses basically to like a plate. And then that plate is the gases. And then in the center of the plate, you have like 2 pinpoints, that 2 fucking shotgun blasts of all of the shit that's been collected by these black holes get spat out. And we're fucking like however many billions of years in our progression out of this funnel, in this progress out of this into the space.
Interesting. So then theoretically, our universe it's not just a giant expanding circle that does this all the time.
No.
Like in all directions.
But it's in a cone.
But it's a cone.
It's a cone. Like,
so then that's so weird. It's so weird because I see it as like everything.
but it's not like
right?
a normal cone. It's like a multiplicative cone.
Yeah.
Where it's like it starts very cone-like and then almost becomes like a circle and then a sphere and then it's everywhere.
So then what's outside of that? Is other universes.
Yeah.
So is that like,
But who knows? Let's
is that
say,
like a multiverse kind of idea?
Yeah. I mean, we have to have come from something.
course.
If our mass was collected from somewhere, this
Yeah.
isn't its original place.
Yeah. So and
that's undisputable.
fuck. That's where the big questions come out.
That's undisputable.
Right? Yeah. But like that's where the big questions come out, right? Where did it all start? And why did it all start? And what is the thing that started everything? What is the thing that caused this
This
thing to
answer's
happen?
before our universe, I believe.
Yeah, well, obviously, right? But like, there's everything comes from nothing. It has to, right? Because there's no way that something could always have been, or could it?
Well, think about it in a different way. If nothing was, it has to be in duality with something.
Okay. So
Maybe the moment nothing became, something also became.
So then, what came before that?
Good fucking
What
question.
came before nothing? What the fuck? It doesn't make any sense.
Maybe that's why we're in a simulation.
Maybe. Yeah. Pretty
Who
well.
knows? I mean, I don't know if we're in a simulation or not. That was just.
Well, yeah,
But
for sure.
it
but
would
like,
be trippy.
Yeah,
Because who
like-
knows?
like you gotta like thinking about that. That's just the trippiest fucking thing to think about. If you really like put your brain on it for a minute, like what if nothing and something are integral to each other? What came before nothing and something? What is the thing that sparked nothing and something to become something and nothing?
Okay. Well, let's say there was a thing that was unibeing.
Mhm.
There's only one of whatever is.
Uh-huh.
Let's say it split into 2
Mhm.
via some process, like it evolved or some shit, being nothing and something,
Mhm.
which had no choice but to collapse back together,
Mhm.
generating the fucking collision of everything,
Mhm.
then fucking shrapneling everywhere.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's wild. But even and when
Like,
I
who
was
knows,
saying
man?
those words, when I was saying all of that stuff just a second ago, I was thinking like this holds a very good point that God might be real, that
Yeah,
religion
who
could be
knows?
possible. But then I thought about it immediately after that.
At what point?
When
And what
when
is
did
it?
God come into existence?
And
When
it's likely
was
not
he
what we think.
was he there? Yeah, of course, but like just from that perspective,
Yeah.
right? Because trying to understand perspectives is huge. What came before God? God doesn't just exist as nothing.
Exactly.
He can't if he's God.
Because it's made of something that has rules to give.
Exactly. So what came before that? Because if there was just this
Maybe
sentience,
it was like rippling space fabric, and then it like moved enough to generate a potential, and then fucking some spark of fucking the universe.
yeah,
Who knows?
right? Like and-
some state of existence that can allow for something.
yeah, it's just so trippy, right? Because it doesn't make sense that at some point there wasn't nothing, right? It doesn't make sense that at some point there was nothing or there wasn't nothing.
Yeah.
right? Like
If this,
just thinking about
yeah.
how far back does this go? How far back does this universe really go?
Holy moly.
Right? How far back does everything go?
Well, I had like a meditation session, but I just like thought of the universe, and my like point of view of the universe was like our planet, and then it spread out to like our solar system, and then the galaxy, and then it's so on and so on and so forth, until like in my perceivable understanding it went like through like reverse quasar into the explosion, and then that had like another universe, and then it was just expanding though, like infinite expansion, and it was like that turned into a speck of dot, like that just wasn't like a star that you can't see anymore of our universe, and it's just expanding and expanding into like the light just lit up of all these other alternate universes, like stars, and more and more and more, just kept expanding. My brain like fucking was like, whoa.
Yeah, totally, right? And that makes total sense, right? But even like you can meditate that, and you can think of that. And
However,
then you
that's
can
not
envision whatever.
necessarily real.
It's not necessarily real, but then where is real in this whole fucking pickle that we're living in, right?
Well,
because
yeah.
that's there. If there was nothing, okay, really think about this, because and I'm sure you are already thinking about what I'm going to say. But like, if there was nothing, then and how did something form to create this? How is that even fucking possible, to have nothing and then have something that creates everything that is nothing and something? Because if you start with nothing, you can't have something.
No.
But if you start with like, but you have to go back to a certain point where there
What
is
if it was
nothing.
the inverse? What if it was only something that became nothing and something?
So what would that something be?
It would be the between space.
It would
Sorry,
be,
no, it would be the boundary. It would be
So-
it would be the thing that spread, and much like if you have like something aerated, like let's say one of those fucking stones that you scrub your feet with, it's got a lot of pores in it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Let's say you had something that was dense and it spread out to generate pockets.
Right.
The nothing becomes the space in between.
Interesting.
So what if it was just a small thing that became a bubble, and within was like the rippling fucking space fabric of energy that sparked into matter?
Okay, but the problem is you still have to think about how far back it goes. What is that something
But
made
if
of?
there's one bubble that has like a bunch of bubbles in it,
Okay. One bubble that has a bunch of bubbles.
but each of those bubbles are like different multiverse.
Right. Okay. So then still and I get everything that you come up with here. You have to you know what I'm going to ask? What came before that? Dude, like that is the mind-boggling question.
The film of the universe, you know.
That is the mind-boggling question, because no matter whatever that something was that started everything,
Yeah.
what formed that? What created that?
Yeah, the chicken or the egg.
The chicken or the egg? What created that? What is it? And if there wasn't anything before that, what was the thing that came out of nothing, which is nothing, that formed that thing to create this over the course of whatever amount of trillions of years?
Well, then let's say it wasn't nothing that generated something. Let's say it was something that generated something. But let's say that something... Fucking Jesus Christ. Now
Dude,
I thought about it for a second. I'm like, wow. Like, you're so right on this that like I can't even deny it.
Right.
So that means something has to have existed indefinitely.
Yes. It has to have, for us to have gotten to this point.
Because either there is, or it is, or it isn't and it isn't at all.
Exactly.
Right?
And if there isn't anything, then there is no way for
Then
us
there's
to
nothing at
exist
all
in the
whatsoever.
first place. There's no way, because it was nothing. It was zero.
Okay, well then what if in kind of like more of a scientific way, you generate more energy than what goes in? If you can make more than you started with.
Okay. But there's still...
Like there's a feedback return loop that's more bountiful than what went in.
Yeah, but where did the feedback come from? Where did the feedback loop come from? I can say this forever.
Well, what if it was the laws of the space?
Yeah.
But then now you have a space.
Yes, exactly. So you can't have space because that's something.
Okay, well, maybe the space is the something.
Yes. So that would...
And there was nothing in the space, but the space itself was embryonic.
So the space always existed.
Yes.
Even before suns.
And it can be pushed and stretched indefinitely.
Okay. So then if we lived in space, okay, and there was nothing in space, space was just space.
Mm-hmm.
We removed the planet and we can just look at black.
Sure.
Okay. That's likely what it was. If we want to get to a point here.
Sure.
That's likely what it was.
Yeah,
it was just black.
Vast nothing.
Vast nothing. But still, what kind of chemical reaction would need to come out of nothing and this space that is a whole lot of nothing, that has no light,
okay, well,
that has no...
That's a good point.
Anything.
That's a good point.
Then, boom, comes into something that creates this.
Because I think certain materials generate different violations or disturbances of space, or generate laws based on their being, which would be like ferrous metals and things in the planet and the core to generate our magnetism, and then electromagnetism based on the electrons in the space and the atoms and so on and so forth and their interaction with each other. However, if there's nothing, then are there any rules of space?
No.
Other than the invisible rules of space that we don't know.
Yeah, no.
Right? Like, something goes in a direction, it just can't not go that direction because there's nothing stopping it or slowing it down.
Yeah, if something goes in a direction in space, it doesn't have a thruster or something that it can physically throw in that direction to make it go the other direction. Yeah, but no, there's no rules.
So that's where I was thinking, well, let's say there's some disturbance that generates something, but if the space itself is so cold and heartless, does it have the chance to make something out of supposedly nothing?
And now that's interesting.
Because I don't know if you can.
I don't think
that
you can.
Condition.
It has to be something. There has to be something. First. Always.
Okay.
No matter how far back you look.
Okay. Let's say it's not something of material.
No, I'm not saying something of material.
No. Well, let's say there is something. It's just not something that is a material. It's not a physical thing.
Okay. So again,
let's say energy itself that isn't a photon.
So, okay. So you'd have to look down on such a small scale, like below the quantum, likely.
But this goes beyond our scope of seeing.
Of course. But
we still can't deny
there is more.
That there might be something.
There is more.
It's like what makes up...
It has to be.
It's like what string theory is posing to be.
Yeah.
It's like what makes up the quark that makes up the proton and the neutron and the electron. Like what makes up the thing that makes up the thing.
That makes up the thing that makes up the thing that makes up the thing.
And that
exactly
could just be the vibration of space.
So
generates a thing.
Right. So then I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to I'm going to say it, but we're not going to go into it because what comes before that?
Something that farted that made the ripple. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
The fucking cosmic fart.
The cosmic fart. Oh, that's great. So
that
maybe that's so funny. Maybe so let's just say we have this vast nothing, and let's just say within like this nothing, let's just say it's just a black hole. Okay,
we're in the universe is inside a black hole. Sure.
We are in a black hole. All right,
that'd be trippy.
That would be. But it would make sense to a degree, right? Because if we have this idea of a wormhole or whatever and things get shot out into this universe, what's to say that something being consumed by the black hole isn't the creation of the next universe? Or the black hole forming in the first place is what creates a new universe, right? So is it possible that everything that we know and that we see and that we perceive as nothing isn't nothing, but it's just an endless stream of black holes that have, for whatever reason... something happened and a black hole was formed, and that black hole that was all of the universe, which is nothing, somehow created that bubble that you're speaking of.
Ooh. What if we're speaking on too base of a level? What if it's not even like our physical nature? Let's say it's a dimensional thing. Like, for example, 2D is a paper. 3D is a ball. A ball can pass through paper, but it'll always look like a disc on the paper.
Yeah.
It'll just change volume.
Yeah.
Right? Get a little bigger and then a little smaller as it passes through. But in, let's say, a tesseract, right, things are able to exist tangentially to something else within itself, yet occupy the same space. Right? So what if the material is stored in pockets not visible to our dimensional eyes? Therefore, we can't judge its material.
So then nothing is something.
Then nothing is something. It's just stored between a veil.
Yeah. So it's not nothing and something. It's nothing is something.
Yes.
And that the nothing... Fuck. The big eye roll. Okay.
Everything's within like this subliminal space.
Yeah.
Right? Like, think of a black hole. A black hole stores its mass in a subliminal
Inside
space.
of a subliminal space. Yeah. Interesting. which would make sense as to us be every universe, every multiverse, in quotations, inside of one black hole.
Yeah, like, let's say
Because-
all of the material fell into the black hole to make all of the, basically, like, the vacuum of the multiverse.
Yeah. That creates gravity, that creates anything. Interesting. But what would have fallen inside of that black hole in the first place? So, dude, we could go about this forever.
Jesus Christ.
Dude,
I mean,
this is interesting.
we're onto something.
We are.
We're onto
We gotta
something.
be. We gotta be. Neil deGrasse Tyson, get on here and tell us that we're fucking stupid. But like this is so intriguing
We
to
are.
me. Yeah, we definitely are. But that's okay. Like that's what's so intriguing about it, and the question of where did we come from, what, and then how far back can you go?
Well, let's swap it a little bit. What are we?
We are. We would be from the belief system that I believe we share. To a degree, is that we are the universe looking back at itself.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? So we are just involved in everything that has been made of nothing. But we are here, and we were nothing, but now we are here to perceive us. Right?
Well, yeah, if we include our previous debate.
Yes, of course. We are here to perceive ourselves, which is the universe, because we are a part of the universe, so that means we are the universe. On a very tiny, minute scale.
Yeah, well, we're made of all of the same shit.
We are made up of the same shit because we have to come from the same place.
Yes.
But what if we come from nothing? Are we just nothing?
I mean, if there was nothing and we are nothing, then we're all the same.
Yeah.
Because we're all nothing.
Yes.
Except for what is all, and in that scenario, all would be one.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because if you're all included, it's like hatred itself, all of the microaggressions are within hatred. Right? But they're all hatred to some degree.
Yeah. Totally.
Right? So they're all encompassed within the same piece. But that's if that piece is the universe.
Totally.
And that's where, obviously, there's so many interpretations. However, that's what my interpretation of what one would think God is. However, that's a super fucking biased word, right? Because so many people have so many different interpretations of it.
Yeah.
However, if you just say universe, like all things that are.
Yeah. Including God.
Let's say beyond universe.
Everything.
Like if universe had like a universe.
Yeah.
Like all things themselves. If we're a part of all things, because we're within the fucking the cosmic dust, right? Then we must share some connection to it.
We do.
Okay.
We absolutely do.
But let's say energy itself, coming from the bounds of somewhere, ripples through everything omnidirectionally and all-encompassing. Maybe that's what consciousness is.
Interesting.
Right?
But
Like,
what a flawed system to create yourself out of. Right? Like,
well, why is it flawed?
well, it's not, but it is, right? If you wanted to create something that could understand you fully. And
Okay.
you understand you fully because you are you, but maybe you don't understand you fully, right? Because you're infinite, right? So how can you understand infinity? How can infinity understand infinity when infinity is so fucking massive? You can't. So you create something that can maybe perceive it to a degree so that you can understand you a little better.
I think you're onto something there, which reminds me very much of psychedelics.
Yeah.
Right? Where you can be something that you're not, however you are.
Oh.
Because you're experiencing it.
Yes. Yeah.
You're in a conscious space where you're not what you are.
Mm-hmm.
You are something else.
Yes. You are
right?
experiencing.
Or at least it's distorted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But there's many places where you can be like, I don't know, let's say I've never done these things, but like a boga or something, or like something that gives you a all feeling where you're totally out of body and you're just all things all at once. Let's say that was a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're certainly not you anymore. You're this aspect of all, or of the universe, or of this, or of that, right? Where you're experiencing some space, some state.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
So it's not necessarily real, although it's not perceivable to someone else's reality, right? Although it's still affecting your mind, which is affecting your decisions, which I would argue makes it real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But now where does this get occupied in this grand scheme of the universe?
Yeah.
Where is this space?
Why is this space?
Why is this space? Right? And that's where and that question to me becomes so fascinating, because that's where we get included into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Because you zoom out enough and you get to fucking see things on a much smaller scale when you're like really looking at it. Like I can pick that out around the things that are similar.
Right.
Right. And then that kind of gives you the ability, when you can modulate your consciousness, where you can shift. Like, me looking at you right now is a very specific perspective, rather than me closing my eyes and thinking about something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Where I can totally modulate my being from in my body to out of body instantly.
Right. So
just via shifting my state of mind.
So then you're playing with what is true reality.
Sure.
Right? Because
whether you're given relative and real content from that space is the ultimate question.
Mm-hmm.
However, in practice, I imagine you can deduce those questions to some kind of you're actually fucking cooking. You're actually using what you're learning and thinking,
you're
and
physically
seeing
touching, you're
testing it out.
Yeah, you're physically touching things. You're physically manipulating. You're moving things.
And that's where it doesn't just stay in the mind.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas when you're on a psychedelic, it is all in the mind.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody else can, like, I guess there are some psychedelics that where people from different parts of the world say that they experience the same thing, or maybe they witness each other inside of a psychedelic trip, like an ayahuasca trip.
Yeah, they're together.
For example, did you hear about that? It was like a group of 23 people, and the shaman had, I guess, taken ayahuasca so many times that he had learned to manipulate the innards of the ayahuasca trip.
Yeah, that checks out.
Have you heard about that?
I mean,
I'll briefly
not
tell
this
you.
one particular.
I'll briefly tell you about what happened from what I'd heard. I believe it was an ayahuasca trip, and there was 23 people that were coming to visit with this shaman, and they'd all taken ayahuasca before a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And within that ayahuasca trip, the shaman brought all of them into the trip together, right? So they could all see each other. They could all interact with each other.
Yeah, they're on a different
inside
space.
of white nothing. White nothing, not black nothing like we have here in the universe. Mm-hmm. White nothing. And within that, people were able to think of anything, like Green Lantern, and make that thing exist and appear.
Yeah.
So people would start fucking throwing fireballs at each other or something. And then the shaman, because he'd done this so many times,
he was like, nope, stop that.
He was able to stop, or he was able to just like assert his dominance and show him just removing you all from existence and then sending you all on your fucking trip journey, like as if you were in a prepared state, like you were able to do
you're
whatever.
like the ultimate dungeon master.
Like you're in control, sure, but like now you guys have started fighting, and maybe this Chad over here who thinks he's done ayahuasca 5 times and wants to take on the shaman and show that he's all big and buff and whatever, like just some stupid shit, and the shaman's just like, no, I'm gonna wipe all of you and send you on your journeys, right? He just like just flexes and fucking shows off and that's crazy, because if you can literally physically communicate, see and be with these 23 people that you were in the other room with, in a wooden little hut, and now you're in this white existence where you can throw fireballs at each other.
Yeah,
Is that not real?
that's most certainly real.
Because you can, you're physically. Well, I don't know if it's physical, but your internal mind is physically
Yeah.
interacting with other things and people, and you're able to move things. You're able to create.
Yeah.
Like you're fucking.
Well, think about consciousness for a second. When you play VR and something comes right at your face, you duck.
Yeah.
Let's say you can feel that space.
Okay.
Is it fake if you can feel it?
Well, yeah. Like if you could feel it hit you and it
Yeah.
could cause damage,
Yeah.
then no, it's real.
Then there you go. And I believe that there are things in that space because I've listened and read and seen some things for shamans and going into that space where certain ayahuasqueros or like the people who head the ceremony go into the service, and one of the people had a different ceremony from a different person, yet they got like claimed somehow and had like they had negative feelings and all these other things because this ayahuasca maestro did something bad to them in their trip.
Oh.
And them in this new ceremony, this dude could see this lingering on this person from that person.
Oh.
And they go into combat in that subliminal space where it
trippy.
all goes.
Oh,
And you're
trippy.
generating incantations and armies of shit fighting each other. And there's physical affects from that mental space
Interesting.
where they get damaged physically, maybe not identically, from what's happening in the space.
Oh, that's fucking weird.
Yeah.
And like they come back with what, bruising or
No,
something,
but
or
it's
like
the way that they described it. It's like energy on congealed, crystallized energy, maybe in like negative energy, or whatever, in their energy body, which is like you have your physical body and then like your meridians and the fucking light layers that kind of make you up in their piece, where they can kind of actually explore that in that ayahuasca piece. But apparently it gets lodged somewhere in there, right? Where they have to do something to remove it.
interesting.
But that generates physical affects on their body because their energy body's fucked up. So
Right.
that something corresponding to that energy body location fucks up some part of their physical body,
Interesting.
like a cancer, right? Like this bad thing is constantly generating negativity in this location. Until this is gone, this will remove itself. That was the kind of idea that I got from it.
Interesting. Huh.
Which sounds intense, like
It
high
does.
stakes if that's the fucking game that you're playing,
Yeah.
which is why like I imagine not a lot of us even want to go into that
No.
kind of consequence.
No, that would be crazy. Like that's a do or die kind of situation.
Yeah, but you're going up against other people in that space.
Yeah.
Like other shamans
Yeah.
from like the ayahuasca and other plants that can make it to that space.
Yeah,
That
that's
can
fucking-
interact with each other.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But then we have to go back to our original
Which is space.
point, which is space. Which actually I should probably start heading home pretty
Which
soon here.
it's been a fucking spacious adventure.
It has been a spacious adventure, but that still, I'm just so fascinated by where this all started. You know, like what is this? What the fuck is this, dude? Like, why are we here? What is the point? If we came from nothing and like besides the universe wanting to see itself,
Yeah.
what is the point of all of this?
I
What
don't-
is and this isn't from some sort of a
There might not be a
cynical-
point.
Yeah, like what I guess there is some things that you don't need to have a point to do.
We just get the privilege of existing in a space that can recognize itself.
Yeah,
Maybe that is
trippy.
that allows you to make your own point. Maybe that is the point, is to make
Yeah.
your own point
Yeah.
and interpret the situation as you best deem so.
Wild. Well, thank you for joining us on our space talk
Yeah, that was fucking
slash
wild.
minor psychedelics trip talk. That was a big, like, that was a big one.
Yeah,
I
we
think
went
that was
fucking deep into infinity.
Yeah, deep into it, and I think we came up with a couple decent points. You
Yeah.
know, from our very
Educated perspective.
perspectives. Yeah, absolutely. That was. But if anybody,
Relatively educated.
if anybody knows anything that could answer some of the questions that we talked about today,
Yeah.
or if you've heard
Or
anything
correct our
that could- or
nonsense.
correct our nonsense. Yeah, right. Like that's all this is.
I'm sure there's a lot of there.
But if there's anything, just feel free to jump into our Discord, send us a message or whatever, and we'd be happy to talk about it. So that's all we're here for, is to figure this crazy shit out. It still blows me away, man.
And until next time,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
take care.